Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to the FYI podcast, where we talk about faith, life, adulting, relationships, leaning into some mental health in this series. And if you don't know who we are, my name is Micah Keneally, one of your hosts, and this is
Keneally, your other host. It's a joy to journey with you. Here is the FYI podcast. Our guest today is Dr. Sam Kim. Welcome to the show, our friend.
Hey, honored to be here, guys.
Really excited.
Yeah.
And for those of you tuning in, we are in a mini series on mental health, like Micah said. And so as we kind of gear into Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of the holidays, this is just a time where we're taking your questions and we're bringing in different pastors and authors and speakers who are experts on the field of mental health. And Reverend Dr. Sam D. Kim is the co-founder of 180 Church in New York. He is also a Yale-Hastings Scholar, as well as he has both studied and taught at Harvard Medical School. And he's the author of the book, A Holy Haunting. And he's also our friend. And so, Dr. Sammy, would you just be open to sharing a little bit of your life journey with us today?
Yeah. So one side, I'm an ethics scholar. I'm also on the Fulbright Commission, dealing with mental health, global health issues, and bioethics, societal issues, including mental health, AI technology, and the speed of technology and how that affects societal issues. On the other hand, I'm also a minister in Manhattan, ministering to the major sectors of society: tech, medicine, healthcare, and others, et cetera. And I'm glad to be here to talk to some young adults about this mental health series you guys are on. And hopefully I can help and shed some light and add some value to my friends there, young friends there who might think maybe I'll be cool too with them.
You are cool enough. You're on the podcast, so you passed the first test, though. Dr. Sam, we are so thrilled that you've said yes. And the fact that you do so much in this space and you are juggling so many different things, so many different roles, coming across so many different people who are up against exactly what we're leaning into today. And that is mental health challenges. We all have some form of tension in our life when it comes to this. And can you just share a picture of maybe what a health and wellness could look like for a young adult to live life to its fullest in this day and age?
I think that as I think more about what a life of flourishing looks like, just generally internationally, globally, I think that's about relationships. Mental health is very intricately connected and correlated to the health of our relationships, because in the end of the day, at the center of the universe is a relationship. The Father, Son, and Spirit, they're a fellowship, the eternal community of love, ever flowing of love. And if you want to have a metric for flourishing, it's our relationship with others, it's our relationship with God. And there are only two ways you can achieve those ends, no matter what you accomplish, no matter what you materially even possess in your life. And that's community and intimacy. But I think that today, in an age of political correctness and not stepping on people's toes, I think we have a very difficult time achieving real intimacy because we lack accountability on the other hand. And without accountability, you wouldn't be able to really know someone. And I think for especially young adults in the age of social, I think what we see on social media, TikTok, Instagram, is achievement, so much achievement in comparison, like what you accomplish by what age and what's cool versus what's really important, which is who really knows me and is in a relationship with me. And I think that those tensions need to be thought through, I think. So how do I achieve intimacy? I need community, but I also, in one hand, need accountability? How do I get those things? I think that's the tensions we're grappling with today.
Hmm.
Sam, I think that's so good. And you hit on something that I just saw. So I'm not like the biggest avid TikTok watcher, but I did come across this one TikTok or this Instagram or something. And there was this girl and she was sitting with her girlfriends. And then all of a sudden this bridal party gets out of a restaurant and they take off running across the street. And the girl's like counting them. And she's like, 1, 2, she's like, there are 15 girls celebrating this bride. She's like, how does she have 15 friends? And she's like very distraught because she's looking around sitting with one friend. She's like, I can't even name 3 friends to celebrate life with, let alone 15.
Yeah.
So what would you say, Sammy, who somebody is in that exact tension of what you're talking about of wanting to be seen and having that intimacy to be known,
Right.
and to experience that, but also that communal element? Like, what would you say for the person who maybe is not even struggling with the mental capacity of that, but they say that the average person can honestly only handle or have 3 to 5 friends that are super close to them? Would you say that that is a true or false fact when maybe 3 to 5 is what you can kind of have in your life? And how would you encourage the person who's trying to just navigate, how do I just get one good friend? How do I become the friend that I'm looking for, is looking for?
Well, I would say to the student or young person, get off screens and live real life. And it might feel scary, and might feel looking someone in the eye and feeling that awkwardness and that tension. I think even you feel that even more today because we're not used to face-to-face interactions. But the science says technology cannot replace face-to-face interactions. And that's why Gen Z, I think we talked about this before, but it's the loneliest generation in history, even though it's connected the most to the world and to each other through technology. But you can't replace face-to-face interactions. I remember like when I was a teenager, in order for me to talk to a girl, the only way I could talk to her is to call her at her like landline home phone. And even friends, I would have to talk to their grandma, their sisters, their mom. And the moms sometimes and the dads would quiz me on like what my aspirations for the future would be, what my SAT score was, what my GPA was. And then she would be embarrassed about, all the things that they're doing. And then the brothers and sisters would be screaming in the background, saying, this is your boyfriend. And there was no way for you to be not tethered to their real village, their community, their home. And it was awkward, but it was, in a sense, it was real life. We saw into who this person really was, their family. There's no way you could ghost this person because you knew them. You really saw into their lives. And that's what's missing today because of the advent of social and the advent of technology in general, how it affects society. So I would encourage just really practically, hey, try to live real life, even because it's difficult, but it's well worth it. That's how you develop relationships. You have to enter awkwardness. It's always awkward in the beginning, but eventually there's mutual exchange. You find a favorite band, a favorite player, a favorite team, favorite food, reciprocity takes place. And you go, oh, you too? And then bam, a relationship is born.
I love that. We're laughing over here because we know that that's true. Like when people would come to the house and my sister pretends she's me, she's like, hi. And they like start talking to her and he's like, is this Micah? No, this is Brittany. So like you get a sense of the sibling rivalries or the banters and stuff, and you can't replace it like you're saying. And I'm over here giggling inside because I'm like, oh my gosh, if he only knew, like there's only a family of 4 over here, but so funny.
Well, in a world that you talked about AI a second ago. And I've just been learning a little bit about AI. And of course, there's Chat GPT that you could have read a paper or a pastor could have read a sermon for them. But beyond that, there are some who would like see future programming benefits of AI to have a companion or a chatbot to dialogue in conversation, or to be a virtual assistant, or to ask how you're doing throughout your day. And they could learn your idiosyncrasies. They could be like a companion. They would never make you mad. They would never bother you. And yet you'd still be really lonely.
Well, I'm just saying this. I think of Iron Man. He has that little thing that helps him do everything. I can't remember the name of it, but I mean, he has his little assistant helping with everything.
Jarvis.
Jarvis?
Yeah.
Jarvis.
Okay,
Jarvis
it is.
right, yeah.
So I think of that even when you're talking of that didn't replace a physical person, right?
And my gosh, I know that there's also medical benefits with AI, and some good and some uncertain with how that could shake out. But the bottom line across all dimensions is that there's something healing for the soul about another relationship, that we're designed to be interwoven with other relationships and community. And part of it is so powerful, how you were talking about awkward. The other word that comes to mind for me is boring or boredom. I think that with AI or with technology, we've removed the possibility to ever be bored or to be awkward, because we can just grab a screen and entertain ourselves. But I think that where some real creativity and real fun comes from those awkward, boring moments, that it was just like, but that's where you made great memories or great friends. I mean, is that some of what you're getting at?
Yeah, the sacred part of the human soul is that's why you feel awkward. You're standing in front of someone that matters. You're looking into the eyes of a soul, someone made in the image of God, and you feel it. That's why you feel awkward. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do sometimes when someone's new or someone's there, because they're real. Unlike AI, unlike technology that we've programmed already. They're someone made in the image of God, and they're a masterpiece. We just might not know it yet. And so I think the sacred part of building relationships, and the healthy part, is the awkward tension we feel. And that is the sacred tension we feel. And that's so, and when we enter that tension of awkwardness, I think what we're saying in that space is, you're worthy of my attention. You're worthy of my time. And I can't just ignore what's in front of me, because your worthiness, or what you're worth, is incalculable. And I think that's part of the tension we enter. And that's why it's so beautiful that when we do come to that place and see someone for who they are, we become their friends, their spouse eventually, or brothers in arms, sisters in arms, or lifelong friends. It's a beautiful thing. And if you think about it, relationships are the only things that will last into eternity. This is something we'll be doing forever.
Yeah, Sam, I love that you bring in just like that soul element, because we are a beautiful masterpiece created in God's image. Like, there is only one of us. Like, we cannot be duplicated like objects around this earth, right? And I think like what you're getting at is so beautiful and sacred, because it's that sacred tension that you're talking about. And we're talking about some other tensions that is maybe a basic question for you, but for the person who kind of feels stuck and they feel the stress and they feel the anxiety and they feel the pull and they feel the financial weight and the burden, and they're afraid, like they're almost like analysis paralysis. Like, they're so afraid to make a decision that they don't want to make the wrong one, that they end up not making any. And by not making any decision, that's the decision, right? So we're choosing those things each and every single day. So for the person who is stressed and feeling anxious continuously, or finds themselves in a downward spiral in those moments or each and every single day, that's an alarm that our soul needs help or our body needs help. But how can we, in the society of which we live, when there's so many social things pulling at us, how can we decrease those levels of stress and anxiety when it is all around us? Like, how can we do that?
Yeah. Well, I think there are two answers to that question, because one, in an external environment organizational theory lens, you can't, because our environment is out of our control. So there is a sense of anxiety being ubiquitous to all of us as people that cannot control the next tsunami, next mass shooting, next natural disaster. That's something we can't control. So there can be a sense of anxiety, and that's normal. So anxiety is normal, but catastrophe and thinking, catastrophic thinking is a practice that we lean into a lot of times. The problem is there are reasons to be worried, but we sometimes think the worst case scenarios because we give into this maladaptive form of catastrophic thinking. And that itself, I think we don't realize is a practice. CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, focuses on that, how to reframe that way of thinking. So first, know that you going to the worst case scenario is a practice, is a learned practice. And some anxiety is involuntary, but catastrophic thinking is not. And faith is also a practice.
Wow. Very good. So good. Wow.
Dallas Willard one time asked a renowned psychologist, if you could describe Jesus in one word, there are many attributes to Jesus, what would you say that culminates the person of Jesus? And they were thinking, sovereign, joyful, kind, gentle. And Dallas, and they asked, they kind of picked up that they're wrong. So they said, Dallas, what do you think? Dallas leaned back in his chair and said, relaxed.
Wow.
And they're thinking, what? Relaxed? Yeah, Jesus was the most relaxed, non-anxious person because he was never in hurry, because he was perfect union with the Holy Spirit. And he was not in hurry, but he was the most productive because he rested in the presence of his Father. Like he was sleeping in the boat in the midst of a storm. You catch him, he never freaks out. Why? Because he's anchored and tethered to the God of the universe that holds the universe and the world in his hands. And I think a lot of times we don't really talk about in spiritual formation, especially with young adults. Can we get there? Can we get to a place? Because I just want to go into theological implications on this. Might be a little bit complicated, but if you look at Jesus' idea of kenosis, the emptying, Philippians 2, he put aside his divinity, which means as a human being, the new human being formed by the Spirit in spiritual formation, he came to a place where he could be relaxed. So that's spiritual maturity. And Dallas Willard, because you trust in the promises of God and the presence of God is how mature you are. So I would say those two practices. Know that anxiety and catastrophic thinking is a practice. So those two tensions we have to grapple with. And if we can learn and then relearn how to walk in peace in the way of Jesus.
Wow. That is so, so good.
Amen. Yeah.
I mean, there's something about the person of Jesus and the pace that he was graced with that then when he comes into orbit with us, changes our pace and changes the grace on our life. If Jesus were here, what do you think he would say about Sabbath?
Oh, well, I think Sabbath is a violent sort of word to American life, the ambition, like Gen Z. I read a recent project, Gen Z feeling always like they're behind, and they need their schedules filled up. Like, unlike millennials who wanted to travel the world, Gen Z felt like they need to accomplish more. They look at millennials, oh, these guys just want to just hang out all the time. They're hippies. But Gen Z felt like they need to accomplish, and I need to fill my whole schedule. I shouldn't have any time. Sabbath really comes from the idea of, Isaiah 61, when Jesus says, I've come to preach to the poor, come to heal the brokenhearted, set the captives free. I think Jesus would say, The greatest call of your time is not productivity, but presence.
Mm.
So what is Sabbath? It's resting, not working, and resting in the promises of God's uh, presence and promises. And believe in the covenant that God made to Abraham. He will make you great. He will bless you, right? And he will bless you to the point that so exponential that it's unimaginable. But the key word phrase is in the perfect grammar, he will. And our job is to rest. You sleep like Jesus was sleeping in the boat, believing that he will do the work. And so much so, it will be apparent compared to other people. And then you can't say in the end, oh, I'm the man, or I'm awesome. God gets the glory, but hey, I get the joy. I think that's what Jesus would say. The call of your time is not productivity, because that's a way of you becoming your own hero of your own journey, but practicing presence, the presence of God and presence with others, being there, being with God and being with others. That's Sabbath.
In this mental health mini series, we landed last week here, right about the same point with Dr. John Deloney from Ramsey Solutions. And we were having a conversation really on how to build a non-anxious life and how to become a non-anxious presence. And I think that is something that just is so countercultural because of what you said. Maybe we feel the compelling desire to go somewhere or do something or fill our schedule or accomplish and achieve. But it's this idea that, and I remember coming across becoming a non-anxious presence in college, studying to be a pastor, and we're doing hospital visits. And they're like, look, if you go and visit somebody in a hospital, you've got to walk slow. You are coming into, you don't know what the situation is. Don't freak them out. Like, settle down so that way your overwhelm doesn't overwhelm them. That's kind of when I realized, like, oh, non-anxious presence. Got it. But I think that that's something that would love to hear your thoughts on, of just what could being a non-anxious presence mean or look like to a college student, in a dorm room, in a campus or a classroom, or an office job.
Well, I think that if you're centered in the presence of God, and like I said, Sabbath, I think, is being aligned and in tune to the presence of God and the presence of others. If I'm not trying to work to make you like me, right, or earn your approval, because I already have it in the Father, right? So the Father comes first, the presence of the Father. Then my presence would be, I'm not trying to prove to you my worth. And I think that that's really the tension of the Sabbath, is we're all trying to prove our worth all the time. But if you saw the great reversal, like Dallas Willard talks about in Divine Conspiracy, Jesus is a non-anxious presence as a model because he received the Father's blessing without doing anything, any ministry, but the heavens opened up. And there he was with John, his cousin, fighting each other, who should baptize who, doing cannonballs with his family member, and the heavens open up. And angels are singing, and God is saying, this is my beloved son. So belovedness is tethered to freedom from overworking and resting in the presence of God. Then out of that non-anxious presence and the blessing of the Father, you see Jesus being this non-anxious presence and not in a hurry. And I mean, like, did you guys see Chosen? Like, when Jesus goes into Samaria to meet the women, I mean, I would really encourage everyone to watch that episode of Chosen. I was like in tears because Jesus was not in a hurry. He went to Samaria. Traditionally, that Jews don't go into. They even take a 3-day extra journey to avoid that place. And Jesus said, we have to go. And the text says in John 4, they had to go to Samaria. But that's not a geographic reason. They usually miss it. But Jesus went to Samaria, not in a hurry, to meet this woman looking for living water, not satisfied by life. So you see in the model of Jesus, how that's practiced. The Father's blessing and the Father's presence is paramount to living that non-anxious presence.
I think that's just great, a challenge and encouragement for any of us and all of us listening, and just trying to accomplish that each and every single day of saying, Lord, I want to live in your presence. I want to live in proximity to you. Like he's closer than our next breath. And I think sometimes we forget that when we have the to-do list in front of us, when we have the dream list, the goal list, or just the things that we want to accomplish, right? So we just being in tune with what does God want us to accomplish and how does he want us to get there? And living in a world where there's technology and there's a desire to live for God and there's a desire to be liked by man, but knowing who we are and whose we are, like you said, is paramount in our ability to walk out our faith each and every single day. So I just have the next question. We have a couple left, but what kind of correlation have you been seeing maybe in your studies, from the way that we think to the way that we respond, the way that our brains have been rewired, whatever direction you want to take it, when it comes to the correlation between technology and our exposure to it, no matter how many hours that is, with our mental health in like the day in which we live? Like what correlations are you seeing when it comes to that and the implications of that, really?
Yeah, well, in a very practical level, Good to Great, Jim Collins talks about how technology cannot create growth; it can only accelerate it. And technology, like social, it's a microcosm, right? It's not creating anything but enhancing something that's already there. And I think in the beginning, when social with Facebook and now Meta, I think we should change the name to In Your Facebook, right? I mean, because really, social is about in your face. And like Instagram, for example, Meta now created a filter called Paris. The first filter, if you notice in story, is called the Paris filter. So if we're trying to create nostalgia and by highlighting how awesome our life is, and the proclivity in human nature is we're prone to share highlights of our lives. I got this awesome promotion. I got into this school. I got this job. Oh, look at this concert I went to. And so when there's comparison that comes at this scale, that's when you get everybody believing that everybody's life is awesome in my life. And now I'm like struggling here in the basement, can't find a job, watching TV 24 hours a day, just binged Netflix. What am I doing with my life? I'm such a loser. So if you compare people's highlights with your bloopers constantly, you derail into despair. And I mean, we've seen this scandal with Facebook already, that they hid that mental health report, how it affects especially teens and teen girls, how negatively it impacts their self-image, identity. Honestly, I think 20 years from now, people are going to look at social media as they did nicotine, its effects on nicotine on the brain. So I know there are a lot of ministers where social media depends on their livelihood now, because as media influencers. But I think we do have to grapple with the pros and cons of it, because there is, I think, a lot more negative side effects. Or even like for Christian authors, like there's no way you can sell your books apart from social, and the platform is counted when you sign contracts, and et cetera. So there are those tensions there, I would say.
For sure.
I just look inward on that one, and I wrestle with those tensions in a very real way, because I guess to define them, on the one hand, I want to be a bright light in a dark place. I want to reach young adults for Christ in our world today. And one of the watering holes is a commonplace of a market of an online app or, podcast or platform or social. But then at the same time, I don't want to be a digitally distracted dad. Like I saw this one reel, and how ironic is this that I saw this, but it spoke powerfully to me. But I saw it online as well, where there's this dad, and
I sent it to you when you were on the road.
Yes. So it's this dad has two daughters, and he looks down at his phone, and his one daughter's like grabbing for his attention, and then she pouts and she cries and she lays down, and then she gets up she grabs his phone and walks away, and she's years older. Like,
It's powerful.
And it in about 10 seconds, you're like, oh, that's actually how fast life goes.
Yeah.
Like this speaks to me. Like, I don't want to scroll my life away or miss what matters most for what was buzzing and beeping at me, or what I
Or
could
vicariously live through others.
Yeah.
In this virtual,
Yes.
like it's not reality, it's virtual. Like, oh, how do we enjoy life but not live through others' successes, right? I
Yeah.
don't know.
And I think that right there,
Oh.
what you said there is the key. We need to offer a transcending vision, a compelling vision to live real life, where I think even sin and temptation, overcoming the lesser desires, the less wild lovers, John Eldridge talks about. You guys had him on the podcast. Such a powerful book, Sacred Romance. And you need to live a life that's better than the movies. Aspire to live it yourself. And so when you look at sin and temptation, you know what? I have better than that. And to become an ambassador for Christ, to live this large life, and you can live it when you say, God, take my life. And God promises Abraham, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. To aspire to that type of magnitude. And I don't know what that scale will look like, but to have that desire, because God is a big God, and you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength, to live a transcending life. So they can make a movie about your life for Christ.
That's good.
Come on. But that is a great vision to cast. And I mean, share some of your work that you've been up to most recently as a local church pastor, passionate about the college campus, in your book, A Holy Haunting.
Yeah, so my book launched, actually pre-launched in all the Ivy League universities first, including NYU and Stanford. We included those guys just for fun. But I think one of my greatest passions for students in the university is I doubted my faith and entered deconstruction. That's a word that we use, the D word, the dirty D word today. Pastors are scared of. But when you enter a secular environment, liberal arts education, you're going to be competing with many worldviews. And one of the reasons why I wrote the book is to defend the faith, but before that, to let everyone know it's ubiquitous to doubt. And doubting is not apostasy. And you could feel that shame of so many things going on, precarious, and you enter existential crisis. But I really love the university students in giving a resource. My book is A Holy Haunting, that tension that we wrestle with about the transcending things in life, the life's biggest questions. I just wanted students to not feel alone like I did, because I felt honestly really ashamed and like I couldn't talk to anyone, like not my youth group, not my pastors, because I didn't want to let anyone down. And it was a crippling anxiety that happened, like a dark period of, I don't know, 16 months that I would never want to go through alone again. But God was with me. And I wanted students to really know, hey, if you look at the New Testament, the disciples, especially Thomas and everybody else, they doubted together openly. It wasn't a shameful thing. And then faith is not opposed to doubt, but it's actually part of the process. And like the Beatles, one of the iconic songs by the Beatles, the journey of faith is a long and winding road. And I want to help you when you're there, let you know you're not alone. So that's my ministry with campuses, and the book's providing that reassurance.
Love it. For your season you just described, for you personally, was that undergrad? Was that at Yale? Was
undergrad?
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
I think that's so common. And I would just say to the listener, if you're finding yourself tuning in today and you're in a season like that, that's part of why FYI exists, is to be an encouragement to you, to be a community that's a reminder, like what Dr. Sammy Kim is saying, is you aren't alone. I double down on that. That's a really good message, man. If you could leave that listener with a thought on hope or encouragement, what would you want them to know today?
Just going on with students that are doubting. One time I spoke at a retreat to primary young adults. And one of the leaders, after one of my talks on faith and doubt, came to me in secret and said, I've not told anyone this, but I don't believe anymore. And I felt like I couldn't tell anyone that because everybody counts on me here. And he was just like, sort of like in tears and in shame. And he said, I felt like I could tell you though. And he asked me, is there really a light to the end of this tunnel? And I said, yeah, I've been there. And I said, you might feel this way, but you're not alone. To those students, especially with the life of the mind, and you think a lot intellectually about life's biggest questions, and even the existential crisis of the Christian empire kind of falling, pastors and immorality, and you question, hey, is this even real? And I would say that's normal to feel, to question everything when your world is crashing down, a hero is fallen, and stuff like that. I would say, don't be ashamed of how you feel. There are many out there that feel that way, but be open and invite someone you can trust to the conversation, because the disciples, believe it or not, felt like this too. Like, for example, at the day of the resurrection, the women, of course, God chose the women because they believed, right? The men didn't. And they told Peter, he has risen. And he heard those words, he has risen, those 3 words, but he couldn't believe them. And he told the women, you're out of your mind. So whether today you're full of faith or full of doubt, Easter is your story too. The story of Christianity is your story too. Whether far, close, or somewhere between, Jesus is present and near. And just like Thomas, he'll let you reach out, ask questions. And if you think about it, as I close to this, Jesus responding to Thomas's request wasn't a miracle, right? Because the resurrection was a miracle. But him complying to Thomas's skepticism and even sarcasm kind of was an act of love. And I would say Jesus will reach out to you with loving arms and help you see. And your faith would even be stronger than before, like mine was. So just want to let those students know you're not alone.
Excellent. That's so good. Dr. Sam Kim, we have here with us on the FYI podcast. And Dr. Sam, can they find the Holy Haunting anywhere? Can we attach that into the show notes?
Anywhere. Yep.
Awesome. Well, we'll attach that into our show notes. If you're having the big questions of life, and if you want to walk alongside somebody who's already been there and can help maybe guide you and help you wrestle through some of those tensions, you can connect with us on our in our show notes with the Holy Haunting, Dr. Sam Kim, and just the FYI podcast.